From Hollywood, California, welcome to Reza Rifts with your host, Keith Reza.
Hi, Robert.
How
It's
are
good
you?
to finally meet you.
Yeah.
So how's Hawaii? I understand you're in the lovely Hawaii.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Pretty
Well,
nice. Yeah.
were you weren't happening there during the tragic Hawaii thing last year, were you?
You mean the fires over in Lahaina?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd been there. We lived over in Lahaina for
Oh,
3 months, but we were in a different town. And also that was probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago when we lived over there.
oh, okay.
So we weren't, that's 120 miles away or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean that.
That
I
was
mean,
pretty sad stuff. It was
yeah.
all places that we knew. We knew people that had businesses there, and friends of ours who had friends that lost everything. So that was very sad. That was very
Yeah.
sad.
My family goes to Hawaii once a year for the vacation, and like their boat guy that they go, his like whole boat, he lost it. So
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah. Well, that's I mean, it's a terrible thing, but it's good that nothing happened to you. You know what I mean? So like it's good.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, no, we're safe. We're absolutely fine here. But yeah, they've got it's just as a wake up call for figuring out certain things you got to do.
Yeah.
And
I feel like because I live in Huntington Beach, so I don't really have anything going on. But like I always go to Ventura and stuff because
Mhm.
there's comedy clubs out there, and I feel like there's fires all the time out there. You know?
Yeah, well, that's
So
where I used to live. Was up in the North LA County, next to Ventura County,
yeah,
and they had the big fires. So yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. It's just too dry. You get a lot of rain. A lot of rain is really wonderful to green up everything, fill up the reservoirs, and give us the snowpack up the mountain, so we've got water. So there's no drought.
yeah,
But what it does is it grows all of the grass and everything, and it will grow up 4 feet, 6 feet tall. And then the first heat wave of springtime, and then, as you go into summer, it dries everything out. And then you've got the either accidents or mismanagement, carelessness, like, with Edison, they didn't clean around the base, the guy wires like they were supposed to, and transformer in the winds came loose, hit that, went down the guy wire, hit the stuff, and it just goes right up.
uh,
So, and then also the firebug. So you've got all kinds of problems that, can just spark off a fire. So
yeah. Hey,
yeah.
Robert, I want you to know I don't really believe in ghosts, but I think there's a ghost in your house because I saw the door open and then it shut.
Oh, right. That one?
Yeah.
There's a ghost. They're called Menahunis over here.
So I was like, whoa, you're telling this very sweet
Yeah.
story. And then I'm like, holy Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It wasn't a little dog, right? Down low there. It was a
maybe
person.
it was. I don't know. I just thought I was like,
Yeah.
that kind of pretty funny. But no, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This is really awesome because I'm sure you get airplane a lot, but one of my favorite movies is No Dessert Dad until the lawn is finished mowing. Until
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mow,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no dessert, Dad, till you mowed the lawn.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I wanted to like start with that, and I wanted to know
Well,
like because that was like that was the movie for me as a kid, you know what I mean? So like how
oh,
fun was
really?
that? Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that movie.
it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. And yeah, that was 94.
Yeah.
I was bringing that up to remind myself. I didn't know you were going to ask me about that. That's pretty,
Do people not ask you about this movie?
uh, no, not that much.
Oh
No,
my God. I feel
yeah.
so
So,
original.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you are, let me see. What does it have in terms of the producers? Well, of course, Roger Corman,
Yeah.
Mike Elliott, Jennifer Moran, Lance Robbins, Mike Upton. Yeah, they
James
were all great.
Marsden. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but these were the producers, but the cast, yeah, Marsden. That was early on for him.
Yeah.
It was really, really, really fun. He was really, I mean, he was great, and he was really, really good. You could see that, oh yeah, he's got all the potential to really go somewhere, and he did, you
Yeah.
know.
It took
So
him a while though. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but you know, sometimes that's a little better. If you hit it young when you're a child actor
yeah,
and you really have a huge amount of success, it lasts while you're a child actor. And then if you suddenly are a little guy or a little girl and you suddenly get a growth spurt and you're a tall, gangly thing, doesn't look like the little child actor anymore, then that's really difficult. And then that plays with your brain. You know, you get kind of what's going on here? Why aren't people paying all this attention to me anymore? You
yeah.
know, because they coddle you when you're on the set. And if you instead, if you have some success enough to, you know, want people want to keep, you know, hiring you, but it's not so big and the spotlight is not on you so much because you're playing the children of, you know, the people is the parents maybe, or whoever the adults are maybe getting a little more of the focus, excuse me,
Yeah.
of film. So what you're able to do then is you can be around it. You can learn your craft, and the craft in film is a little different than television, but they're very similar. But that's both of them are very different than stage. And so even if you've been on stage, there's a lot of adjustment to make.
No,
And
definitely. Yeah.
if you are around it and you can learn what it is that you've got to do. How do you adjust for this? How do you tone it down for that little camera? You know, makes your face this big. If you're in a movie theater and you see a close up of Jimmy Marsden, you know, in the X-Men or something, you know, it's 20 or 40 feet high, his face.
Yeah.
You're on stage, you're a tiny little thing up there on the stage, way away from everybody. And so, you know, so you have to adjust to that. You have to learn how on stage you'd make a big movement, and film you just do lift your eyebrow, or you just, you know, much
It's all
smaller.
camera oriented too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and it's
yeah.
all confined to that lens. So if you have some success and it's enough success to keep you working, but you don't really hit it bigger, you know, like something really big happens for you until you are like, you know, you grow up and you're a young adult.
Yeah.
That's great. Or even I know people that were character actors. Bryan Cranston, who is, I mean, Brian's one of the
Success stories. Yeah.
of in the industry. He's one of the top people in the industry, and it didn't hit for him until later in life.
Yeah. I
And
like Malcolm in the Middle was probably when people started to recognize him. And then
yeah,
Breaking Bad is when he just became a superstar.
that's when it, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so up until then, it was like just doing supporting character actor stuff, you know. But then with Malcolm, that was like, oh wow, TV series star.
Yeah.
But then you go from that to massive star. Breaking Bad did that, but then the films after that too. I mean, he's just massive now.
Yeah.
So that's probably better for the brain. It's better for
Exactly.
growth and how you can deal with it. And even if you hit it when you're a young adult, then it's like you can get in a lot of trouble. If you're not careful, you can just go nuts with it all. And there are some people that they had huge winning years and earnings, you know, and they immediately went out and bought huge houses and Lamborghinis, you know,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden that was just for a year or 2 years. And then all of a sudden they're having a hard time getting cast
Yeah.
and lose the house and they lose all the cars. And then they're back to like, what happened?
And
You
then they
got,
get old and fat, and you're like,
yeah, yeah. And then they go to hit the bottle and then they get all wrinkled up and they're drunks and why can't I get cast? Gee, I wonder.
but it's
But
kind of like being a basketball player too. Like,
yeah,
the
sure.
role players, they're not going to have anything when they get out of retirement. You know what I mean? So like they got to save that money, and a lot of players don't do that
They
too.
don't do that. Sports figures don't. Football players, basketball players, you
Yeah.
know, baseball players. But and theirs is a confined, you know, short period of time where you go in when you're 21 or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, 20, 21, usually out of college. So usually it's around 21. And then that only lasts until you are into your 30s.
Yeah. 33, 34-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, so what they were doing, and it's something that they should stress more. There are some people that try to do that. The former child actors have set up, organizations and that they try to help young actors along with it all. But they like in the sports world, they set up managers and they
Yeah.
say, "Okay, here's what you got to do. You got to have this guy manage your money, and they're going to give you an allowance for what you can spend, but they're going to make this so that it builds so that you have a retirement fund. When you retire, you'll have money to live on." And if they say, I want to spend, but I want that Lamborghini. I want that. He says, hey man, it's your money. I'm just telling you, this is
Yeah.
what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that don't. It's like, I need that extra gold chain because it's only this big. All the chains only make a thing this big. I want to make it so you can't see my face. I got
Exactly. That's the new style. More
that's
gold.
been I mean, I remember, I can't remember who it was exactly. I got his face, but he pulled up at the negotiations. It was NFL negotiations with players, negotiations with the management.
Uh,
And they were negotiating for more money. He pulled up in his Lamborghini or some really, gets out of the car at the hotel where they're having the negotiations in the convention, in the rooms and stuff. And all the press is there. And he gets out. He's got his fancy suit. He's got a rope made up of all the different chains of gold, probably about that big around, hanging around his neck. And he gets out and they say, "Are you guys asking for too much? Do you think it is worth going on strike for?" And he looked at him. He said, "Hey, man, I got to be able to feed my children." He says, "Well, take one chain off and go cash that in and buy food for the whole neighborhood."
it
Holy,
sounds like Deion Sanders or something. Like,
might have been. Can't remember exactly.
uh,
And I think he's wonderful.
oh
But
no, he's great.
that was, and you never know. Was he doing that just as a joke? Was he messing with the people? Probably was.
Yeah.
But it kind of was indicative of attitudes a little bit of some of the people.
So back to James Marsden, for example, when you saw X-Men, did you think to yourself, "Hey, I used to mow that guy's lawn"?
He let me have dessert once I got the lawn mowed.
But no, another good movie that you were in that was really important to my childhood were the Homeward Bounds.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a real fun film. The first one was directed by Dwayne Dunham. And Dwayne is he was so wonderful to work with. So wonderful. And he'd worked with David Lynch as
Yeah.
an editor. And so he really knew the quality of David Lynch's work. He was actually cutting the films together. So he saw the angles, how it was shot, what he wanted to get out of it, the performances. So that's quite an education, is to learn that way, being able to work with some of the great, people. And he has such a wonderful, gentle, easygoing demeanor about him, which
Yeah.
is great for the set. Because if you get somebody that just really, you're thinking about, I want to go rip this guy's head off instead of, I got to think about my role here. You're thinking about the role and you're thinking, son of a bitch, Jesus. But with Dwayne, it nurtured it. It brought everything out and it made what I think is a Disney classic,
Yeah.
you
It's
know.
definitely great because, like, now whenever, like, people say, "Oh, they lost their dog," I just say, "Hey, the dog could show up. You ever see Homeward Bound?"
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like to give them a little positivity.
sure,
But
absolutely.
but I wanted
Those
to
dogs
know,
were so much fun to work with too.
yeah, how is it working with dogs like that? Because
Well, they say that you never work with for an actor who is a lead or one of the leads. If you've got a lead in a movie or whatever, there are two things you don't work with. You don't work with dogs or with kids,
yeah,
and of course, this is both.
yeah,
And the kids were so cute, and the dogs were just, and the cats, they just were so wonderful. And it was just so much fun to play. And you can't play with them because they have to keep their attention
right,
during shooting. But every once in a while, we'd have a break, and then the animal trainers would say, "Okay, You can have playtime. And we go roll in the grass with the dogs and play and the cats and just, it was, and I'm an animal lover. So the dogs to me are just, oh my God, they're incredible. So
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
great fun, great fun. And Don Amici's voice is probably what gets me more than anything else in the whole film. That is the voice of Shadow.
Shadow, yeah.
And he just over and over in the film, it's that beautiful voice of his, and his acting, his interpretation, the life that he gave to that pup is what rips your heart out when you think he didn't make it.
Yeah.
And Benj, who played my oldest son in that, and we still keep in touch. And he says he was too old. He was just too old. And then he turns and walks away. And then when he senses something and he turns around and he sees way off in the distance, there's this old dog just dragging his, legs, trying to make it. And when he yells to him, and then the dog says, Peter, with that Don Amici voice.
Yeah.
And you start seeing him getting younger and younger, and he's running, and not a dry eye in the house.
Oh no, yeah.
My dad he was a fighter pilot, Marine fighter pilot. He was in 3 wars, big tough guy, and my buddy sitting next to him, who was a actor, 6'3", big. He'd been a bouncer, played football, tough guy.
Yeah.
And I looked over at them right in that scene, because we had a screening, had the family was all there, and it was at the Egyptian Theater, and had the front row seats for all of us to sit in. And I looked over and I just saw him kind of looking around and reaching up and drying an eye.
Well, that's the point though, like, because if you could get adults to do that, then it's going to be a good movie,
Absolutely. And my little guy, Jake, was 2. And when we left in the station wagon to drive away, and they said, remember to stay. Now you stay here. And they're looking and they don't understand what's going on. And the dogs are all sitting there, and Sassy, the cat. And he says, Peter. And you see the dog move forward just like an inch or 2. And then you hear Amici say, Peter. And then he is remembering, stay. And he settles back. And when he did that, Jake was sitting in his mom's lap, and he just turned, buried his head.
Oh my God. Wow.
And so when they weren't doing anything with the film, they weren't paying any attention to it. They didn't have us out doing publicity for it. Disney really, really blew it on it. And my publicist was there at the screening they had for the press screening. And when it was over with, all the Disney execs, or, publicity people, and, all those people were waiting outside in the lobby, and all the press came out, and it was very quiet. And they thought, oh God, it's a bomb. It's an absolute bomb. And then they looked at them as they're coming out, and they were wiping their eyes, and they thought, what the hell's going on? Was it that bad that they're crying? And then the reviews were, this thing is so beautiful, so wonderful. And then Disney was like, what? Well, what? Oh, gee, let's, maybe we can. And then they were trying to play catch up, and they were trying to come out with a board game, and which was an obvious choice. Back then they'd have board games.
Yeah, you gotta have a Homeward Bound board game.
And they had, like at McDonald's or wherever, you get your little Chance and Shadow figures, and the parents and the kids, and you get those little things when you buy a certain meal, then you get that. But that was all so behind they weren't on top of it at all. But it wound up being a big moneymaker for them, in spite of the bad work that they did promoting it.
Do you think maybe they just relied on like the voices of the dogs, like Michael J. Fox, and thinking, oh, this is a big star, we don't really need to help promote it, because what I mean? Something
well,
like
maybe, and it could be that, and it also could be that they just thought, well, it's just a little movie and it's not worth our time.
Uh,
So let's give it to one of the assistants, or let's give it to somebody down the line and let them just do the normal stuff with it. And
let's give it to Disney Junior.
yeah, and it'll just go straight to video anyway, probably.
Yeah.
And I had a father come up to me one time at one of those conventions, you know, the Comic-Con kind of things, and he came up to me yelling at me. You son of a bitch. And I said, what? And and then he's, I've had to watch that movie Homeward Bound 96 times. And then he laughed and he said, no, I'm just kidding you. He said, we've had to watch it so many times. He said, the kids just demand that we play it over and over and over. And it was so good. And thank you. And, you know, he was just playing with me.
Yeah.
But people have said that. They've come up to me and they've said, oh my God, that I grew up with that movie. Oh, that is the greatest. I can't wait to show my kids, you know.
Yeah.
So,
So you have met my father.
yeah, that's right. Oh, that was him. That's yeah. Yeah. So and I think it still holds up today. It still is good, you know.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
And my
And
friend David Ellis, I did a film that was like my second film, I think. It was called Take This Job and Shove It. It was based on a country western song.
yeah.
David Allen co-wrote, and Johnny Paycheck had the hit with it. And they were both in the movie. And it was a smaller, you know, it wasn't a big, you know, big budget thing, but it was just kind of a fun movie. Barbara Hershey played my love interest in it, which was really amazing.
Yeah.
Art
You got a
Carney,
lot of good love interests, I gotta say.
yeah, yeah, and Art Carney was my old boss that now I come back to town and I'm the head guy and he's, you know, I'm his boss. So he worked with Art Carney and
Yeah.
actors like Royal Dano. I mean, they really had some good people, really good people in that show. And Tim Thomerson, my buddy Tim Thomerson from I knew back from San Diego days, and David, you know, they were my buddies in the movie. And but my stunt double on that was the first time I met him was David Ellis, and we became good buddies. And then later, he really became one of the top stunt guys. And they use stunt people. Stunt people most often, it seems like, graduate into second unit cameramen. So they'll be a stunt coordinator and they'll also direct the second unit stuff. So
Yeah.
if the star of the show is someone's chasing him, and so there's guys in the car behind you and they're shooting at you, whatever, and then you're up in the car in front, and they're shooting the scenes with you inside the cars. But when you shoot from a helicopter or a drone nowadays, you don't have to have them. You have stunt drivers driving it.
Yeah.
And so that's all stunts, but that's the second unit stuff. So they're doing the car chase and then it pulls out and you see the big horizon and you know, establishing shots of the canyon over there. And the director tells them what he wants. And this is the angle I want. And this is what I want. And then they go and they shoot that. And so he was one of the top. He was working on big, huge Harrison Ford movies and all, you know, this huge things. And he was doing Waterworld over
Oh
here.
my God. I love that movie. Everyone hated that movie, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, he called me, and this is when it was almost $70 million,
Yeah.
unheard of.
It was like the most expensive film during that
Yeah,
time, right? Yeah.
yeah, and it was at the time it was like 70 million, and it was going up toward 100 million. And he called me from over here, and had Laird Hamilton and, you know, famous world surfer, and all these other stunt guys, surfers, and, you know, friends of his that he knew, had them all working on this thing. And they invented that process to seal off the engine so that you had an air intake, and then I think they had bottles of compressed air,
Oh my
like
God.
like a dive tank, and they put it in the jet skis. So when they dove down, it's all sealed off, and it's got the air going to have the air to run it. So it had the exhaust going out, but there was no intake because you couldn't have the water come in; it would just kill it.
Yeah.
So that's how they were able to have jet skis going underwater like that. So that was really
Wow.
cool. And he said that the directors and producers, I guess it was, they wanted this whole big thing where you're just out there in the middle of nowhere, and they built an island, this floating thing for that to be the city of the
Of the
people,
water. Yeah.
you know, the water world,
The water world people. Yeah.
and it was really actually very, very stupid to do. It kept sinking, and it kept, they'd have to pump it out and get salvage guys out to pump it out and get it up again. They should have found a point and built it out on the point on a big turntable, and you could rotate it. So you always need ocean out there. You
Yeah.
can have it no matter where you turn it. But they didn't take my suggestion.
Robert, I got a new great trivia thing about you. It's like whenever they say, "Hey, what's some trivia for Robert Hayes?" You could be like, "He knows everything about the movie Waterworld, and he wasn't in it."
Well, the thing about that was that David told me, I said, geez, I said, this thing it's like up to about 100 million. And I was talking with him several times during this thing. And he said, hey, I got my first film to direct as a director, a full, the director.
Yeah.
And I said, great. And he said, it's the sequel to Homeward Bound. So he directed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
my light just fell. Oh, that's
So-
awesome. So he directed you then.
Yeah, which was great. That was great fun. Homeward Bound, Lost in San Francisco. And so we kept talking. He would call me and say, yeah, it's looking good, and this is looking good. And what about this and that? And what about, and so we just, got him as familiar as we could with all of this stuff he was going to be dealing with on that. And during that time, I was saying, is this going to get up to 100 million? And then it got to 125. And when it was there, I said, is that possible? It's going to cost 125 million? He said, this is going to go to 200 million. And I said,
Whoa.
that's unheard of. Are you kidding? And sure enough, it went over 200 million, as I recall.
Wow. But
Crazy.
so like that's one of those things where like there's signs, you know what I mean? Like it all connected to you and this guy working because he was your stunt double and now he's directing it. You know what I mean? So like it's important how like that stuff happens.
Yeah. And it was only my second film, I think, Take This Job and Shove It, and he was my stunt double. And his first directing job, and I get to be
the star. I mean, besides the dogs, but yeah, the star.
But that was so fun. It was so fun. And the kids were so great. And Kevin, the little one, he was so cute. And he was just naturally just a jewel. I mean, he was so photogenic. He was so funny. And he was just being a kid. He wasn't acting. He was just being a little guy, a little kid.
Yeah.
We had on the was it 30th anniversary, was it, or 35th, whatever it was, just not too long ago in LA at the Egyptian, and where it had premiered, and we had a big, 30th year celebration of it, 30th anniversary on the marquee out in front. It was, and then they had the red carpet out there, and they had a couple of people with cameras, so
the
and it
paparazzi.
Was really fun.
That's what we like to call them.
A bit of that, just not too much, but it was, and a few people came, saw that, and were gathering around there, wanting to, say hello or get an autograph or something. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And Kevin came from the Chicago area, I think is where they are from. And he is now an engineer on a railroad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Which is like, oh, wow. What do you want to be when you grow up? An engineer. Wow, he did.
That's a better answer than comedian, though. Because like that's what I said when I was growing up. And I just wish like people would say, hey, there's no money in comedy. So like, I wish I would have said engineer.
Yeah. Sure.
But before we
tell that there's no money in comedy, and just ask Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But before,
he's getting close to 1 billion, isn't he? I
oh
mean,
yeah, it's and
800
I
million.
heard I heard he just made that Pop-Tart movie just for kicks. Like he didn't really care if it made money or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like,
That would just be pocket change for
eh,
him.
yeah. So
Financial thing. Yeah.
I had one more question before we get an airplane, but I wanted to ask about Raw Justice, which was a
Oh,
great movie because it had Pam Anderson and yourself, and I wanted to know like how is that? Because that was like very thrillery,
it
dark.
was funny. It was just, when you're kind of having those lulls in your career. And they say they want you to do this film. And I said, really? God, it's kind of a cheap thing. But well, and there was really not much going on. So I went down there. The director, writer director, I didn't know him, but some friends had worked with him, and he was really a real character, but a great guy. I really
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
But he, I mean, talk about guerrilla filmmaking. When he needed money, like they had to get money to be able to get this for
right.
the for this scene or something. And this was in Mobile, Alabama, and it's down there, New Orleans, Mobile. They've got gambling down there, casinos. And so he would go in and gamble and make money because he was really good. I mean,
Whoa.
knew what he was doing. He was one of those guys that, could just go in and win. And he did that. And that's how he paid off bills that he had to pay and finance stuff that he had to pay.
Oh my
But
God.
I had some bad advice, unfortunately, on that. They said, you've got first billing and, why don't we just take second billing and just kind of just hide a little bit in it?
Right.
Because, and I shouldn't have gone with that, but I did. And in some stuff that was released, they put me down at third billing, and then there was a review that came out and said, Robert Hayes, oh my God, what happened to him? Look what happened. He's now third billed in this little movie. I thought, oh Jesus, you can't hide. That was just terrible advice, and you
Yeah.
can't hide. And I've had to live with those little comments every once in a while since then. But it was just done to get some money. It was just, that was, it looked like, oh, that could be fun, and I can get some money to,
S-
pay the
s-
mortgage.
See, if I was a publicist and if I was your publicist during this time, I would have been like, where Robert Hayes, look what happened to him. I'll be like, yeah, he's kissing Pam Anderson.
That's true. It's true. I
Like,
paid. I paid to do that film.
so we should talk about airplane because that's what a lot of people talk to you. And I want to try and like stay away from questions you've heard before, but I'm sure it's going to be impossible. I'm going to try my hardest, but I wanted to know like what was it like working with Otto the balloon?
Oh, the autopilot. Yeah. As I recall, as we were all standing around one day, and the boys, Jerry, David, and Jim, they call them the boys. That's what we all called them. They were trying to figure out, well, what do we call him? What's his name? Slim, or should it be Ed, or whatever? And I said, what about an homage to Jonathan Winters, this one routine that he had? And he said, uh-oh, there goes uh-oh.
Yeah.
And, with his little whatever for Otto. And I said, how about Otto? And as a little tribute to homage to Jonathan Winters. So
So
I
you
don't
got
know.
to name him.
I don't know if they were listening to me or not, and they probably have their own version of how they came up with the name, but I remember saying that.
Yeah.
And then his name is Otto, but it's Ottauto. It's Otto. It's both
Yeah.
pronounced. So that's my version, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I think Otto is just one of the coolest names in the world. Like if I ever have a child, I think I'm gonna name him Otto. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Because I don't know. I just think it's like I don't know. It's unique. It's funny. It's cool. I don't know. But and then I wanted to ask you, did Robert Stack, that's his name, Robert Stack, did when you worked with him, did he like scare you with his voice or whatever? Because I
No.
watched Unsolved Mysteries growing up and I couldn't fall asleep.
Well, he had a TV series Oh gosh. Oh, I almost had it. I could look it up and see, but he had a TV series that he starred in, and I did a guest star on it. He had a couple of guest stars,
Oh, nice.
and one was the good guy, and one was the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I was, let's see, what was this thing called? It would have been about 19. Most Wanted.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Most Wanted.
Yeah.
And he and this young gal and the young guy, and they worked for him in a special department of the police department, and they would go after the most wanted people. And in this one, there was a star football player on the team, quarterback, and I was a wide receiver, kind of a big hot shot wide receiver, and we combined for all those touchdown passes, So we were really hot, but him being the quarterback, he was the one that they had all the eyes on, and he was driving. There was a girl with us, and then I was in the passenger seat, and there was a wreck, and we all got beat up, but the girl died in the wreck.
Right.
And so the fraternity, the guys that contribute money to the university, those guys that are the endowments and all that kind of stuff, they have all the power and stuff.
Yeah, the college mafia.
Yes. They convinced me. They said, look, we've got it. You'll ruin his career. He's on his way to be the Heisman Trophy winner and all this, and it's going to ruin his career. So you take the dive, you take credit for it. You say it was your fault,
Yeah.
and we will take care of you. Don't worry about it. And they convinced me, because I was kind of like, well, I don't know. And so I went to prison for what he did. And it really twisted me up when I was in there, and they weren't coming to help me or anything.
Right.
And so finally got out. And when I got out, I was, all of a sudden, there were people that were dying. They were being shot by a sniper. And when you start connecting the dots, there are all these, people making the endowments and for this college, and and so it winds up that it's me. I'm the one doing all that, and it's one of the rare times I played a bad guy. But it wasn't really bad. He was a guy that got wronged, and he was really wronged, and he just got twisted went off his nut.
I mean, this football player must have been really good for you to take the bait. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he was like best friend and all that stuff, and I was really kind of willing. I don't know what exactly you would call it, but very malleable with these guys. They were very convincing to do this, and they're convincing what they would do for me and take care of me, so that you're not really going to serve time, and it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
and that wasn't okay. So anyway, that was Bob's, and I got to work with him in that.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, to me, it was kind of scary, because it's that voice, Elliot Ness, the Untouchables.
Yeah.
And so it was, and he was Robert Stack. He'd been nominated. I think he won the Best Supporting Actor Academy Award, and Wild as the Wind, I think, was the movie. And so that was all that. And then when we did Airplane, my parents came to visit one day on the set, and I introduced them to Bob, and who by this time I just realized how great this guy was. He was so wonderful. And I introduced him, and they said hello, and he was so gracious. And he turned to them and he said, I had a series, and Bob was the guest star on that. And I just look as this is like I'm the guest star in his show.
Oh my God. How sweet.
And I thought, oh, that's what I thought. Oh my God.
Wow.
That was so nice of him, so generous, and it was so wonderful. But that's the kind of guy he was. He was an amazing guy. He was one of my favorite people that I've met in life.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, that was Bob Stack, and Peter Graves. Peter was wonderful. He was so great.
Yeah.
And Lloyd was great. Lloyd was
hilarious.
He was hilarious, but at first he didn't quite get it, because he was wondering. He's a very studious actor, and he wants to know, what is my motivation here, and what did I, he had to develop this character, and the boys, this was their first film to direct.
Yeah.
It was the second film they'd written, and then they were producers of, Kentucky Fried Movie. But this was their first film. Then they directed it, and when they said, "Okay, we want to get a close up," and they say, "What's a close up?" They didn't know. Okay, let's have a two shot. What's a two shot? Well,
Yeah.
two people in the oh. So but they were incredible. It was
One of
probably,
them also did Ghost too, right?
oh yeah, with Jerry, I think,
Yeah.
Ghost. But I think they may have been involved in producing it with him too, because they worked together a lot. And then they did Naked Gun, all of those Naked Guns, and then Jim did what was the one that Lloyd was in?
Hot Shots.
Hot Shots. That's it.
See,
Yeah.
I know
You
things.
do.
I mean, I knew Waterworld, I knew Hot Shots. I'm good.
You
I'm
know
on a
this.
roll, Robert.
You know this stuff. That's what they're going to say. They're gonna say, "Yeah, he knows that stuff. He's the walking encyclopedia, that guy."
That
So,
razor blade.
yeah. But then when he finally got it, it was like he just really got it really well. He was so good. They all were so good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I want to respect your time. I have two more questions. This one's just a really fast question. It's not to be taken serious or whatever. But I was wondering, does Julie owe you a favor?
Does she owe me a favor?
Yeah.
For what?
I don't know. Does she owe you any favors? That's all I'm asking.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Ah, bummer. All right, next question.
Yes, she does. She owes me $100,000. No, I'm going to see her in another week.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Her husband are coming over here, and we're going to go have dinner. Yeah.
Oh, well, put in a
I
good
got to
word.
tell you, that is her voice.
Yeah, she's the funniest too.
She is the sweetest. She is so great. She's so great. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody playing that role better than her.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone doing that,
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then my last question for you, Robert, is if you could go into a time machine and talk to a younger version of yourself and tell yourself what you know now, what advice would you tell yourself?
Oh, get it together. Don't be such an idiot.
Yeah. Really? That's good advice.
Yeah. Don't you want to take all those things back you said? You thought they were funny? No. Those were annoying. You were an annoying guy when you were young. Yeah, no, I wish that would be great if you could do that. But I guess you can't. So really, what was that? Someone said Bill Withers is a musician. He said, you can't, it's better to look at the world through a window than to look at it through a mirror. Because if you're looking at it, all you see is yourself, and you see what's behind you. In a mirror, in a window, you see what's ahead.
Exactly.
And I thought, God, that's really kind of deep, kind of good.
It's so true too.
Simple advice. Yeah. You can't change anything. So one foot in front of the other, just keep following that little stream that goes into the future, and just give it your best shot each day. That would be some advice I would give myself. There was a film called Endless Summer, one of the great surf documentaries of all time. It was like the first big deal.
Yeah.
James Brown, very famous, and Robert, the two young surfers at the time.
I remember this movie. I never saw it because it said endless.
But it was summer.
Yeah.
If you like summer,
like,
that would be good. But he said one time, I saw an interview with him, and he said that his dad told him when he was young, he said, they were talking about, hey, he said, come on, let's go surfing. And he said, Dad, I got to go to school. I got some tests. He said, you can make it up. Let's go surfing. There's a great swell, because his dad was a lifeguard, and he was a great surfer, and he was like this big character in the Palos Verdes area.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge, big, great swell coming. And he said, let's go, because you can't just say, okay, we'll get the swell the next day. That doesn't come the next day. It's that one.
Right.
And so he said, but Dad, he says, no. He said, and then he said to him, he said, look, all I want you to do is just do the best you can and be a good guy.
That's all you can do in life.
And I thought that was so cool. That's what I tell my kid when he was born and when he was growing up. I just said, do the best you can and be a good guy. And then I borrowed a line from Starman when I did the series Starman.
Yeah.
And when he was going off, Chris was going off to school, played my son. And because we're moving all the time, trying to keep away from the federal guys chasing us. Michael Cavanaugh and Patrick Culleton were chasing us. And as he goes off to school, he's all nervous and everything. And I said, I'll be in your pocket. And he just kind of tapped his pocket. And he said, I'll be in your pocket. And so I used to tell Jake that too, which is, I'm just right there. Think of me. I'm with you. I'll be in your pocket. And I just thought, oh, that's a cool line.
Yeah. Well, you'll always be in my pocket now because you're on my podcast. So
there you go.
Robert, thank you so much. I want to respect your time. Do you have anything you want to promote, like your social medias or anything like that? Or I'm on Twitter. I got Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I'll put something on there once every couple of years or so. That's all you need to do.
I'm not really that good. Although here, every once in a while, it's so pretty here. Every once in a while, I take a picture of it and think, God, this is pretty, and I'll stick it on there. But, and I guess then people would see it and like it. Is that what you're supposed to do, is like it?
You're supposed to like it, but I love it.
They got to have a heart next to the thumbs up.
They do.
Or a big swoon look.
Yeah.
Big smoochy lips kissing something, maybe, popping, or the heart pumping. Maybe instead of just a little heart, you have it pumping.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, and that means you really, really love it.
Well, hey, Robert, thank you so much. I'm going to give you a high five since I can't shake your hand.
Yeah, boom.
It was a real pleasure, man.
Well, it was for me too. Thanks. I appreciate it. So now what are you doing? Where are we going to catch you?
Well, I do stand-up comedy. So if I'm ever in Hawaii, I'll let you know, but I've never done Hawaii. So
well, where do you do it?
I open for TJ Miller right now, and I used to tour with Norm Macdonald. So
oh, really?
Yeah. So
that must have been really kind of fun and interesting.
It was both. It was also nightmarish at times.
Was it Norm?
Or aren't we all nightmares though? He was my best friend, so I say it out loud.
Oh, did you know with like what he was going to come out of his mouth from night to night?
No,
always going to be something fresh, something different.
No, you never knew what was coming out of his mouth, so like that's why it was funny.
I love Norm Macdonald.
Oh my God! Next time we should do this, we should just do Norm stories, and I'll tell you all these stories.
Oh, you would have to be talking because I never got to meet him.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow. He was too busy. I tried, but he was too busy. He said, take a note.
We should have done this interview 10 years ago. That way you could have met him. I could have been like, hey, Norm, Robert's here. I would have introduced you guys.
Take a message.
Yeah. If I could go back into a time machine, that's what I would change.
Yeah. Take a message. Well, I got the message already. Well, what's the message? He says, hey, I want to meet you. I said, oh, we'll take a message.
Well, I do know he loved airplanes. So we used to watch that. Okay. Yeah. We used to watch it a lot in the hotels and stuff.
Oh, good. Then I had my connection with him without knowing it.
Yeah. So, well, he also watched Airplane too, so that should make you feel better too.
Oh, good.
Well, Robert, have a great day, and thank you so much, man. This was a real honor and a pleasure. So,
my pleasure too. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll see you later, buddy.
All right, you take care.
All right, guys. Subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see you guys next week on Reza Rifts.